So hi everyone. Do you mind if I do this in Hebrew? Anyone? I'll stick to English. So I'm Kobi from Appnext, and I'll put together a few tips on how you can find your treasure of successful paid user acquisition. AdColony really built this up very good for me. It started talking about fraud. I'll touch a bit about that as well. Appnext is a mobile app discovery and monetization platform. We work with over 45,000 developers and thousands of advertisers daily who use our self-service CPI-based dashboard. And let me tell you a bit what we're going to talk about. First, we'll talk about the dangers of paid user acquisition, the mix, bots, organic install hijackers, who your helping angels could be, talk about transparency, which is a big solution for all of these, and then go through a few more tools. How you shouldn't be proud, what you should do with your creatives, right time targeting, and a bit more about return on investment. So before we talk about the dangers of paid user acquisition, can I have kind of a show of hands who does paid user acquisition? Okay, it's more or less 50-50. So those who don't. No, I'm kidding. First, make sure your game is prime. You don't want to go into these waters before your game retains the users and knows how to make money, because it's very dangerous waters. A lot of sharks, very competitive. And anything you do once your game is fine-tuned, you'll do much better than when you're just trying in the soft launch. Your conversion rates will be better. Your power versus the media partners will be much better. So do it in the right time. So the first trick you should be aware of in paid user acquisition, the first kind of fraud is what I call the mix. Basically, taking a low-cost incentivized install offer wall kind of install, where the users are actually paid virtual currency to install the app, and you could get that in very high volume. Mix that together with a high intent, this is like the Appnext interstitial, where users actually know what they're installing and want to install, and they're not getting any kind of incent, and mixing it all together. And you'll see it under the same source. So you can get, the media partner here has to gain is, he has high volume, with average performance, but you don't want average. You want to cherry pick the good sources. So this is one thing you should avoid, and transparency is a big guide to do that. Second is bots. So this is a mind-boggling figure. 7.2 billion globally is estimated going to fraud. So it's not a small issue in any way. It's around a third of the spend. So take into account a third of their spend is going to bots that are not going to actually play your game. And that, you don't want to do that, right? So how do you find that? And I'll talk to it in a few slides. But one of the keys is to know where your ads are running. Know where your ads are running. And look at initial, but now also look at deep engagement metrics, because now the bots will also play the game, finish the tutorial. Some will actually come in the second day as well. So initial engagement metrics are not enough. Here are a few patterns we put together to help identify from our experience bots. Use of known proxies, a large amount of clicks from the same device IP, that will give you an indication. Different IPs between the click and the install, or the click and the launch of the game will tell you there's probably someone using a proxy and doing some robotic activity. As AdColony mentioned, unreasonable click to install time. So no human possibly can install a game at 200 megas in 2 seconds. Something's fishy is going around here. Look into patterns. A click or an install exactly every X seconds, every 15 seconds. You know something is routine going on here. Or post-install activity, users dropping off at the exact same point. So they know, okay, the advertiser is looking for end of tutorial to get people, so they'll go just above after that point. So if a large proportion of installs from the same media source cut off at the same point, it's probably robots. Also, unproportional representation of any kind. So it could be a device. So if you have an iOS campaign and all the installs, or 70% of the installs are from iPhone 4, which is not the most dominant model in the market, something is fishy. Another thing they could look at is the language. So same thing, you have a campaign targeting US, and 70% of their language is Philippines, of the local language of the device, then something is fishy is going around, and probably robotic. There's a lot of device ID related issues you should check. Different IDs from the same, something that's probably the same device by matching IP and user agent. Multiple IDFAs from the single IDFV. IDFA that are not uppercase, Google advertising IDs that are not lowercase, which they're supposed to be, or some kind of consistent pattern you're seeing in the IDs. Someone is generating them. So this is things you should look into bots. Another big phenomena, which is very hard to detect, because usually when you're looking for fraud activity or something fishy, you're looking at the post-install effects. When someone's doing organic install hijacking or user coloring, or in the web days it would be called cookie stuffing, they're taking advantage of the last click attribution and trying to attribute users that maybe they didn't even see their ads, that media partner. So it's very, very tricky to find, because they'll be maybe act as exactly like your best users, because these are probably users who organically went into the store and installed it with no connection to the ad. So how do you find that? First of all, look at the pre-install activity, not the post-install here. Again, know where your ads are running, so this is kind of the magic. And if you have the option to see what happens if you're promoting a few apps, if you see clicks exactly at the same second for both those apps, something is going on here. They're trying to click on as many possible ads at the same time to color those users for that media source. Look at CTRs. The CTRs will be very, very, very low, because basically any impression, or maybe there's no impression, someone's not really seeing these ads, they're just coloring them through the last, forcing a click, the CTR will be very, very low. And conversion periods. It won't be 1 hour, 2 hours. It could be 24 hours, 36 hours, because of the flow. They colored them, and then after 3 days, they went to the store. So these are things you should look to. And what we also recommend doing, and we have internal systems, is to compare to your organic baseline. If they act exactly like your organic baseline in terms of initial engagement, payment, 7-day retention, they're probably organic. So color that media source as organic, and go to your media partner and tell them something's fishy going on. So who can help you in this? This is, I mean, your game studio. You might have a UA department, you have an analytics department, but if you're smaller, this is, even for big companies, this is quite complex, just following all these patterns. So you should pick the right media partners. And know ahead of time where their ads are showing, what's the user flow. Work with the right service providers. There's companies like Forensic or CyberInt that provide these services for you. They will flag installs as probably attribution fraud, and they will do the work for you. And pick the right attribution partners. Some of the attribution partners are doing these services themselves, like Adjust, or AppsFlyer, that connects with Forensic IQ and CyberInt, so that it's fully integrated, and you'll see all the data through the attribution partner. And that leading up, as I mentioned, what I think is the holy grail for media buying and these fishy waters, dangerous waters, is seeing, the transparency. There's some platforms like Appnext that are fully transparent. You'll see where your ad is running exactly on the app name level. Install the app, see the ads. Make sure the user actually sees them, that there's no incentive to download the game. It could be sometimes there's soft incentives as well. You want to see that you're okay with that. Soft incentives, we've ran into a game developer saying, hey, help us out by installing one of these games. So they don't get any currency, but there's still some kind of emotional incentive. And it might be okay because maybe these users are actually good and they're interested. But you should see what's going on. You should see your ads and you should see how you're being promoted. And make sure it's viewed, as I said. And it's not enough. A lot of the media partners will give you a number. But a number is just a number. You don't know what stands behind it. You can't see the app. You can't see the user experience. So make sure you work with partners to give you the app name. So once we've talked about the dangers, I'd like to talk about a few more tools to make your journey successful. One of the major things which is very conceptual is don't be proud. Drop the ego. Ego does not have any sense when doing performance marketing. So if you're an art director and you want your ads to look great, forget it. Your game is your art. If no one comes and sees the game, that doesn't make any difference. Then people forget the ad. So the ad could be as ugly as possible. But if it works, use it. And the same thing is don't think you're better than your competition, you're smarter. Always look what they are doing. What kind of creatives work? And as you can see, and if the famous example of the screaming face on the top charts, any strategy game uses it, a lot of games use it. But why? I mean, you'd think that you want to be different, that an advertiser or publisher want to stand out, but everyone uses the same face. Anyone have an idea why? It works. Now, why it works, you can rationalize it. It's probably because people can immediately recognize the genre. They know exactly what's going on. Okay, I know this game. People have very short attention spans. They have a few seconds to decide on, okay, this is strategy, I'll try it out. Same works with ads. So look at templates. There's templates in different genres of games that work. You can be very creative and put this amazing power shot, but then you have a very simple black on white, 3 characters, progressing, level 10, level 15, level 20, that will work. There could be a giant battle scene. There are templates that work, and there are now tools that help you find these templates and what works. And you could work with Sensor Tower. They have a product currently only for iOS. And App Annie, who bought AppScotch, is relaunching the product as part of their pursuit. And you could actually see your competitors' campaigns. You can see, which one is the laser here? Is this the laser? Aha. You can see where it's running, for how long, and assume if they're running with the same creative at the same actually publisher, same name, that it works. So try to imitate that. Don't be proud. One thing that many user acquisitions managers forget, they know to do it when they're buying on Facebook and Google, but it's the same thing with anywhere else when we have media. You have to refresh it. You have to refresh it. So this is a typical graph where you'll see creative goes up. There's some kind of slow, gradually decline in the performance, and you refresh the creative, and it goes up, starts going down, and so forth. We see that all the time in our platform, and we talk to our advertisers about refreshing more and more and more. And basically what you want to try to think is there a way you can keep this line more like this? And maybe you need to look at creatives that are less complex to produce. Maybe they have 90% of the effectiveness, or the ROI on them is 90%, not 100%. But because you can maintain a much higher refresh rate, then they're much more, they provide better ROI over time. So this is something you have to take into mind. And by the way, this is a good way also to see if the media source is doing some of the fraud we're talking about before. Because if you refresh creatives all the time and you don't see this graph, then the users are not seeing the ads, probably. So take that into mind. Remember to always refresh your creatives. Personalization. So, of course, language, the genre of the game. Also start looking at matching what type of trigger you displayed in the ad and the onboarding experience. So again, let's fall back to strategy game. If someone is more of a builder and you put the creative about building, take them through a flow and the onboarding experience that has building as the major part in the beginning. Here's a great example from the apps world of Get. They know that you're out about in a bar area, so they're telling you, hey, out and about tonight, sort your ride home with no waiting around. But this adds to the complexity I talked about before about refreshing your ads. So if you've got this giant metrics of 15 languages and 12 types, and you want to refresh them all the time, and you want to personalize different types of game, but try to think of simple templates that will allow you to both personalize and refresh. Pre-qualify. Everyone knows that video is in a big rise. You can advertise with Appnext, Ad Colony, Vongo, Unity. And the good thing about it is it pre-qualifies. The users know what they're about to install. Same thing, that's why playable ads you can do with Trisensa or cross-install. That's why they're doing well. It's the same thing. People know, they get a feeling of what they're doing, and then they install. But it's a tricky point because the cost is higher. So maybe if you're a more mass market game, this shouldn't be your main channel. When we have advertisers saying, oh, we want to do just video, we know what the quality is very high. But if there's a chance that even by mistake someone could install the game, but it's mass market, it's not very complex, it's very engaging, then it'll be much more cost productive to do other formats. You should mix them up, but don't rely only on this if you're a mass market. If you're a niche game and the chance of someone installing it and playing it by chance is low, then you should stick to pre-qualifying formats. I didn't talk intentionally a lot about targeting because, first of all, everyone talks about it, and I think it's kind of overrated when you're looking at a mass market game. You want to get a big audience, you want millions of users. You're not to be able to just target the exact specific 45 to 50 user that has already played 10 strategy games. You need to go much wider. And one of the things we're developing, and there's some other companies that are looking at, is trying to recognize the moment the mobile moment the user is in throughout his day, and then allowing advertisers to target these moments. So for games, there's a lot of research, and we've done as well, about commute time. Commute time is a great time. People play a lot of games on their commute, and you could target commute time by day parting, but some people don't stick to the regular hours of commuting. So with other data, we know, and some other providers know, to tell you a user is commuting. This is a good time to target them. Same thing if they're leaving work. Of course, if they're playing a game, that means they're playing a game. But there's other ways, and they're probably cheaper, because everyone's targeting the users that are now playing a game. But maybe if he's commuting and not playing a game yet, is a better time. So look out, this is going to be a trend that's growing about moment targeting. And last and not least, how am I doing on time? 150. Okay, so ROI. Get the full picture. On social contributors, there's the users that are going to, the K factor, the users are going to bring you more users back. And there's the in-game factor. The users, everyone knows here that the people in the alliance, the clans, whatever you call them, that's a real monetization and retention driver. So these users are very important. They might not be paying users. So try to do some kind of a multiplier for campaigns or media sources that bring you a lot of social contributors. And we're seeing different companies playing around with different, very complex but interesting models, multiplying by the K factor and then adding something about the in-game contribution. Ad revenue. There are companies now that will, like Sumla, he's an even house. Well, he's walking around, tall guy with a Sumla shirt. They allow you now to also trace back your ad revenue. So it could be that a campaign is losing money if you're just looking at in-app purchase, but basically if you're also looking at the lifetime value of ad revenue, then the campaign will have positive ROI. So look at the full picture also here. And also look at who's contributing. So probably a user didn't see one ad. This is from our friends at the Apps Flyer. You can see an example of the first touch being Twitter, and then App Loving, and then Google AdWords, and the last touch will be Facebook. So if you're looking only to last touch attribution, so Facebook is doing all the good work here. But if you're going to look into all the assist along the way, and AppsFlyer and others also allow you to see this. And you can develop fractional attributions, maybe multipliers, where seeding companies will take an assist and give it a 20% value. And you could also find overlapping sources. So if you have two sources appearing all the time together as assists, one is assist and one is the last click, probably not worthwhile advertising, especially if you're doing CPC or CPM on two of those sources. Pick one. That's it. Minus 20 seconds. Thank you very much for your time. Please come over to our booth afterwards if you have more questions.